Good morning. Now your mic went off, JR, but we are ready to go and talk a little bit today about EMFs. That's always a great subject. And I just happen to have somebody who is a very special person who had an experience with EMFs, and she agreed to come on today and share her experience and a lot of the information that she knows about EMF. You'll notice that she's an MD, and I'll let her give you a little bit more about her background and her what she does, and as she weaves it into the story or however she wants to. But we're going to be talking about EMFs, and there's a lot of questions. Some people are aware that EMFs are dangerous, and some people are oblivious to that and have different ideas. But Dr. Shaffia Laue is here today, and I think I'll just let you talk a little bit and see where we go. Or would you? Is that okay? Are you ready to go?
Yeah,
All right.
just as a matter of background, I'm board certified in integrative medicine, but I've been practicing for 40 years as a holistic psychiatrist. And although insurance companies would have me do 15-minute med checks to put people on medication, back in the 70s, ancient history, when I was in medical school, I'd actually learned about homeopathy from a doctor named Patch Adams, who was one of my off-the-scene mentors at that time. And so I was always looking at spiritual aspects, looking at what else, what kind of energy do we have here? And in the early 80s, I was a resident at the Menninger Clinic, and John Upledger, who's a DO and really brought craniosacral treatment into the rest of the world. It's an osteopathic training, but I did 2 40-hour workshops with him, and he was teaching us muscle testing. And at that time, I learned that even having a watch with a quartz battery would make my arm weak. So I continued to learn, and the universe would occasionally teach me things that it felt I was ready to learn. Like, it's still, people believe there's no Lyme in Kansas, but around 1989, I managed to get Lyme, and it took 2 years to get diagnosed, and then another 10 years to clear. And then more recently, I had a mold exposure. And the thing about Wi-Fi and mold is that Wi-Fi exponentially increases the mold, as does glyphosate. So one of my clients, who was living quite happily in an old stone farmhouse, and until the field next door started being sprayed with glyphosate, and suddenly the farmhouse now had an abundance of mold, and she got very sick and had to move out. So the interaction between EMFs, electromagnetic fields, other toxins such as Roundup or glyphosate, and mold toxins. What does mold is simply an organism that breaks down dead things. And so when you have Wi-Fi that's interacting, the electromagnetic fields are interacting with us, our house. The mold loves the Wi-Fi. It exponentially grows. So I had unfortunate mold exposure in a brand new house that had 1 pipe leak. And I didn't know what was going on. So it took a while to figure it out. And thank God for the Mold Summit, and put 2 and 2 together that after a 4-day hospital stay with a kidney stone gone awry and being in total body sepsis, and meaning my whole body was infected. And then they diagnosed atrial fib. Well, the atrial fib was secondary to the mold. And so then I was going in and out of atrial fib, and especially if I got stressed. And then I had had one of the WAVwatches from the very beginning. And I hadn't been using it much. But then a year ago, November 22, I'd gone to a conference. I'd been stressed by a very rude roommate who stressed me and put me in AFib, and somebody at the conference had COVID. So a lot of people ended up with COVID. And I came home, I thought, oh my, I need to put on my WAVwatch. And I put on my WAVwatch on COVID and just really helped move that along. And then I started using my WAVwatch more, let's say regularly. In the middle of December 2022, I went into AFib, and I have all these different things besides my WAVwatch, but certainly I have my favorites panel that I have, and it has circulation and AFib and heart and vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve controls the heart rate. So I have my little favorites grouping of things that I'll run for that. And I have some herbal tinctures that I take, and I usually can get myself out pretty easily within a few hours. And December 2022, it was like 4 days, and nothing I did was able to get me out of the AFib. And I'm just going, what is going on here? This is really unusual that I can't get out. And then my husband, who's very astute in energy medicine, we looked at each other. I wonder if they put up more satellites. And so I grabbed my WAVwatch and I put it on EMF detox. And within 15 minutes, I'm suddenly out of AFib after 4 days of not being able to get out. So, you know, whether it's happenstance that suddenly I got out, or whether the EMF detox was really part of it. As it turns out, checking on the internet just before that 4 days of AFib, they had just put another 8,000 satellites orbiting the globe. So, you know, it's a drop in the bucket, but 8,000 satellites is an exponential increase in the amount of EMFs that everything on the planet is being exposed to. And if you're not sensitive, I think it's a CACN1A, close to that. There's a gene SNP that some people have, and it controls the calcium channels in your cells. And if you have this gene SNP, a variant, if you have the wild type, you're not as sensitive to EMFs. But if you have the variant, your calcium channels are much more susceptible to the electromagnetic fields. And what this does is it changes the calcium channels in the cell wall. So suddenly the interior of your cell is being flooded with calcium, which is not where it needs to be. Yes, we need calcium for our bones, etc. But intracellularly, it's a delicate balance. And when this calcium channel gets triggered by the EMFs, it's a mess, right? For layman's terms, because the calcium's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the polarity's off, And people go, I don't know what's wrong. I can't figure it out. And they do the lab test and they go, well, your labs look normal because we're talking about an intracellular process here. And you have to know, do I have this gene SNP? And you may not be able to get it on 23andMe because there are 20,000 gene SNPs in the test that I currently use with my clients to look at metabolic pathways, not just MTHFR. Do you have this one that deals with folate? Well, that's just one SNP. SNP is single nucleotide polymorphism, which is SNP is a short term for a single gene. And so there are 30, 40, maybe a lot more, 50 genes that control how we make neurotransmitters, your serotonin, your dopamine, your norepinephrine. And so if you just look at MTHFR and say, oh, you need folate, but if you have all these other gene SNPs over there, it's a very complex situation that you can't just throw folate at and expect an answer. And so this is again where I like the WAVwatch because it's sound and you can put it on all these different programs, whether it's the Bach flower remedies or the emotions, because the sound frequencies are going to help bring your body into balance much more so than a drug that's trying to well, for example, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are a blessing for those for whom it works. But there are people who have certain gene variants that they're not making enough serotonin. And so when you have a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, you're keeping the serotonin in the neuronal junction longer. And eventually, if you're not making enough serotonin, you've totally run out of serotonin. And this is why for so many people, it works for a while and then it stops working. And people scratch their head and go, why did that stop working? It worked at first. Well, that's because you weren't making enough serotonin for the reuptake inhibitor to work. And so you need to know what's going on in the biochemical pathways to support. So this is where looking for what are the right frequencies. And there's so many on the WAVwatch. I mean, Linda, you have 1,000 different frequencies. And so you have to keep asking, what else here? What else? Just like my 4 days of looking for the right one for my AFib. And whether it's depression or calcium channel or something else you need to detox, you just have to, and Linda's talked about muscle testing and ways to look at that. I have a cool little pendulum. It's called a clear pendulum because it's a neutral pendulum. And so with this pendulum, if this is the frequency of my hand and we can see it's going positive. And then in the morning, I'll check each of my chakras and I just touch the chakra and it's spinning clockwise. And so this way I can test each of my chakras. If it's reversed because of some stress I've had, it will start going in the opposite direction. I already tested myself this morning, so I know it's okay. But now that's one of my things I do every morning. Oh, did I reverse the polarity in one of my chakras? And oh, what can I do to bring it back into balance? And again, that's another whole nother lecture someplace. But another thing, a little off the subject of EMFs, but one of my patients, actually it was the one I'd send her to Linda to get bras scan, the
The thermography. Mhm.
thermography. And the WAVwatch had just come out, and she came back to my office with a WAVwatch, said, look what I got at Linda's. And so I got one. She had had breast cancer, and I had recommended that she get the thermography rather than a mammogram. And after a couple years, she did end up, she'd already had surgery on one breast, and then she felt a lump in her other breast. And she saw the doctor, and they said, yeah, there's a lump there. We'll schedule you for a sonogram next week. So she went home and she put on her WAVwatch and ran all the breast programs, especially breast cysts or, anything like that. And she felt pretty certain that it had gone away. But when she went back the next week to get the sonogram, the technician's going, I can't find it. And so she said, well, it was right here. And they said, nope, nothing there. And then she saw the doctor, and the doctor agreed, nope, nothing there. So,
I love it.
early intervention in what you can do is, I mean, there's so many amazing WAVwatch testimonials that you have on the internet, and people who have had amazing results. So I'm just grateful to you, Linda, that you put 4 and 5 together and got 9 and came
We
up
try.
with this and dug out all these frequencies from over 100 years ago that have been there all along and were suppressed, just like homeopathy has been suppressed, and they're trying again to take these things off the market. They just took off the eye drops that I've been using for 30 years, that are homeopathic, and who knows what they're going to try and take away from us next. So having something
Wow.
like WAVwatch is incredibly important, because once you have it, they can't take that away from you. So any questions?
It's true. Yeah, we could open that up. JR, do you want to take care of it?
Well,
You
yeah,
bet.
no, I just had a quick question. Maybe you could help. Just, I was following along, but I'm not a doctor, and you had a lot of detailed stuff in there. But are there, maybe just before we take questions, a few practical things that you can tell people relating to, you mentioned genetics, but also EMFs and lots of things. Just a few practical insights for ways people can, you know, understand what EMF symptoms look like, or how to mitigate that, or, any practical strategies that are easy to implement.
Oh, that's, Lyme and mold are both considered to be the great masqueraders, because they can look like so many different things. And EMFs are similar. This person can have headaches. This person, I mean, I was having AFib because that was my weak spot. And so whatever your weak spot is, and then it starts happening. One word I really like from French drainage homeopathy is emunctory. And emunctory means drainage routes of the body. So we have all these emunctories now. Obviously, our kidneys and our liver are emunctories, but all the mucous membranes of your body is an emunctory, a way for your body to push out toxins. And your skin is an emunctory. So any place you have a mucous membrane or you have skin, if the liver and the kidneys and the gut aren't getting stuff out the way they need to, the body kicks it up saying, man, I got to get this stuff out of here. So it pushes it out through the skin. And then people start having rashes. And then what do? You take it to the dermatologist and they give you steroid and you push it back in and the body goes, now what am I going to do with this? And so it starts to encapsulate it in different places. What does this have to do with EMFs? The point is that just about any symptom can be secondary to EMFs. I'm sure you could Google and find a neat list. I don't have that on my fingertips, but it's hard to know because each of us is a unique snowflake being, and how it affects each of us is going to be different. And so I wish I had a really nice, oh yeah, if you just have these three things, it must be EMFs. And it's, you just have to constantly be saying, what else could this be? I went through everything I ate yesterday, and that's not a problem. It's the same stuff I've been eating, unless I suddenly became sensitive to it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point and something we talk about often is how interconnected and holistic our bodies are. And so, also thinking about using the WAVwatch, it's not just one frequency, everything, immune system, leaky gut, digestion, you're saying. And actually, we do have two questions in here that would be good to even tag onto what you're saying. One person asked about RA, I'm assuming is rheumatoid arthritis. Any testimonies of people that had success with the WAVwatch? Linda can answer this, I'm sure. And then Robin asked about what would you use for skin tags. And I don't know if skin tags are related to what you mentioned. So those are two questions.
Just quick questions about the WAVwatch use. There's a whole folder for skin, and I would use all of those, and viruses. There is a connection with viruses and skin tags. And then rheumatoid arthritis. Yes, I have had a connection, several testimonies on that. And I think one that I've told earlier was a lady had just gotten her watch. She'd had it about a week and she had rheumatoid arthritis. And I believe she said she got it on Thursday. And on Monday, so that's less than a week, on Monday, she went to see her rheumatologist. And the rheumatologist had a intern or somebody, new working with her. And when this lady came in, the doctor grabbed her hand and said, now this is what somebody with rheumatoid arthritis hands look like. And then she kind of stopped suddenly and she said, no, I guess not. Yours are fine. So the lady's hands had changed over the weekend with rheumatoid arthritis, and her doctor was, really astounded. So anyway, that's one of them.
If I can jump in for a second, Linda.
Yes.
As someone who, especially after the Lyme, and that really whacked out my immune system, and I developed several food sensitivities after that. I became aware because some of my friends are saying, well, I can't eat nightshades anymore because my joints hurt. And, this is not everybody, but some people who have joint pain, it could be Lyme, it could be something else, depending on whether your doctor is willing to eliminate those diagnostic categories. But about 15 years ago, I was to the point where I felt like I was walking like an old lady. And I love my tomatoes and potatoes dearly. They were my comfort foods. Standing in the garden and eating cherry tomatoes, like right off the vine. But once I quit the nightshades, which have a chemical in them, for some people, it is a toxin. And as long as I avoid them, my joints don't hurt. Now, this may be different if you have rheumatoid arthritis, but if you're struggling with joint pain, it's worth a trial. It doesn't cost anything except a little effort. And if it makes you pain-free, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice that. And I found out that white sweet potatoes make a pretty good substitute for mashed potatoes.
Yeah. We do have a question. How can we get tested for various gene strips? Can you tell what you would suggest on that?
Well,
Snips. I think I said strips, snips, gene snips. I'm sorry.
there's a plethora of companies out there that will take your money and give you a report, and some will give you 50 and some will give you 100 and some will give you this report or that report. The company I use is Functional Genomic Analysis. And in my opinion, they are one of the programs that give a very decent price for what you get in the test. Now, you need a clinician to interpret the test, because you're not getting a simple printout of, oh, you have this gene and it's the BCMO1 gene, which means you can't turn beta carotene into vitamin A, so you're vitamin A deficient. It may say that. I was just researching that this week for another patient, and it was saying, oh yeah, this comes up on 23andMe. But some of the cheaper tests online are not as accurate. And so you just do your own homework. There are tests out there that are very good, but they cost between $900 and $1,600. And that's a lot more than you would be charged with functional genomics. But with functional genomic analysis, you need to have a practitioner who will order it for you.
So a question is, are you seeing patients and where are you located?
I am seeing patients. I'm in Lawrence, Kansas. And, you know, I have a small practice, but testimony to integrative medicine. I mean, Linda knows this, but because of the AFib, I was stressed and I went on vacation, you know, because I needed a break. And I went to 9,300 feet in Colorado and woke up the next morning stroking and was completely paralyzed on my left side. And again, a testimony to integrative medicine and to my history of meditation and breathing, important piece of how our physiology works. And I was completely paralyzed on my left side. This is my left hand. I can type with two hands. I can do all sorts of things. I had no movement on my left side. I can walk. You know, it took time, but I'm back in the office 2 days a week, and I walk my own talk, and the universe gives me more opportunities to learn.
So you are a living testimony of what all of the things that you've gone through, and you know how to tell people. And I'm just amazed at all the healing that you've done and the things that you've learned. It's amazing.
It takes work. It takes work. You can't just say, oh, I want a magic bullet pill. Because even if you know the genetics, if you go, oh, if you have this particular gene step, whatever it is, what do I need to do to support my body? And if it's the vitamin A, then maybe you need to take a drop of vitamin A every day. And it's just doing that. Yeah, but it's easier than taking 5 different pharmaceuticals that don't really address the underlying problem.
Yes.
I don't know about that. I don't know if there's a frequency for vitamin A on the WAVwatch.
I've actually forgotten. I think I do have it on the WAVwatch. It's under immune system, immune support. I added that as one of the last ones. So,
Well, cool.
I put in several vitamins in that last update to 1,000 frequencies. And then we've kind of talked about how, or Dr. Laue's kind of talked about how you need to try different things. And I think that's why I tried to put so much on the WAVwatch, is so that you can do that, and you can do that on your home, on your wrist, basically, without maybe going to 15 different places or 15 different, places for over-the-counter meds, or, seeing many, many doctors. At least you can try some of the ideas at home. And if you're having a reaction when you play Lyme disease, then you might want to go to a Lyme disease specialist. You want to do your research, and keep checking it out. Or, if you play vagus nerve, you've got some more chances there, and an easier way to work on that than possibly going through the medical route. But there's lots of ideas there. And then we do have one question: recommendations for Parkinson's. That has been one of the big ideas that the WAVwatch has really helped with. So there's a folder that is labeled Parkinson's. It is in the chronic icon, but also I would go through all of the nerve folders also and play those. And then Parkinson's has been related to Lyme's disease, right, Dr. Laue? That's a huge thing.
That, and I have done a lot of study with Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's. And he has a whole website, Apollo Health. And so I'm certified in the Bredesen protocols. But as I study with this, it's not just Alzheimer's, but that Parkinson's is also buildup of toxins in the brain. And David Perlmutter, who has also written some wonderful books about, for lay people, about nervous disease and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And I've seen videos from his office where someone who had the cogwheel rigidity when they walked, they could barely make it down his hallway. And then he gave them some IV glutathione, and they walked. It's like somebody oiled the Tin Man, walked down the hallway without any problem. So perhaps using, if glutathione is something there's a program for glutathione?
There is not at this time.
Okay, well, using the detox is going to be helpful. Because glutathione is something we make, and not everybody can take glutathione, because again, if your genetics are such that you're not recycling it, that you're missing the link there, that you can't recycle it. And so you're breaking it down, and then you're building up the breakdown products, and you can't recycle it. So you need to know what you need to do to recycle it.
Wow. A lot of information there. And then we also had a question: what frequencies can be used for ALS? I do have some specific frequencies for ALS, but it is the same thing as, it's connected with Lyme's disease. It can be connected with some viruses, detox. And so I would try all of those, plus the immune system. Any other ideas, Dr. Laue? Anything you want to add on ALS?
Well, just a second. Well, look up, I mean, it's again, it's a different lecture, but Jerry Tennant, Tennant, MD, invented LASIK surgery for the eyes. He's a brilliant man, and had gotten a virus from a surgery he was doing on a cataract, and the virus went up his nose and into his brain. And he had a rip-roaring viral encephalopathy, viral infection in his brain. And he went to all the major hospitals in the country. They all said, put your affairs together. You're not going to live past 2000. And he goes, no, I'm too smart to figure this out. I mean, to just go home and die. So my brain works a couple hours a day. So we started working on it. And he has been doing some really amazing stuff. with ALS, and again, looking at the meridians, and where there are blockages. And so, he has a bunch of videos you can watch, but certainly he has made some amazing breakthroughs with ALS. And so this is something we need to figure out how this, but I think just starting with the chakras, but how our polarities can get reversed. And I sort of alluded to this earlier, that just like you take a battery, just happen to have batteries here, and if the polarity is reversed, the battery doesn't work. And so in our acupuncture meridians, if we have an infection in a tooth that we don't know about, or we have a dead tooth, like a root canal, that will reverse the polarity on that meridian. And you think, oh, well, the dentist told me this was fine, and you think it's fine, and suddenly something's wrong. And so looking at first running the chakras and seeing if that would balance the polarity. I don't know if it will or not, but it's a good guess. But sometimes if you have a root canal and symptoms that, in my office, I have a big 2x3 foot chart of all the teeth and what meridian they're on and what's connected to that meridian. And as Dr. Tennant was figuring this out, he had a bleeding disorder. His platelets count was in the basement and he was at risk of bleeding out. And when he learned about this thing about root canals, he had his root canal pulled out. And within 48 hours, his platelets were normal, because that was the meridian that the root canal was on. Now, other things like emotions can reverse the polarity. Scars across a meridian can reverse the polarity. So think of every woman that's had a C-section and had, they were cut across the middle right here, I'm thinking of scars, emotions, teeth. Oh, well, there are 5 things. I'm sort of off topic, but again, looking for what else can we do? So if you have ALS, I'd look into Jerry Tennant, MD, the Tennant Institute. He's down in Texas. I've spent a couple weeks down there listening to him give amazing lectures. And so it's because ALS is something where we don't have anything. I mean, Western medicine says we don't have anything. We make these people comfortable because we don't have anything. But again, it's a buildup of toxins. And whether it's autism or Alzheimer's, to me, as a psychiatrist, it's all a buildup of toxins in the brain and in the body. And everybody's different for how they're building up toxins and how they need to get rid of them. And this is why the WAVwatch is such a boon, because you could just start running the detox programs. And if you don't need to detox aluminum, well, great. And if you do, run the WAVwatch and maybe get some silica water, because the silica helps bind the aluminum. I'm sorry, I'm just going off.
No, it's just great. And I want to give a shout out to my assistant, Courtney Olson. She is here in the Kansas City area, but maybe you could find somebody in your area that does brain massages. She's actually learned to do that. And they're just the lightest thing you've ever felt. I got one the other day, and it's to detox your brain. Now, why wouldn't we want to find a massage specialist that can do that, or somebody that has that certification? And there's different names, but hers was just brain, as far as I'm understanding, a brain massage, brain detox. But find different things, just like Dr. Lau is saying. There are so many different things that you should be doing for one thing, not just one thing. And again, that's the idea that we did on the WAVwatch, is to put lots of things so you can try all of them and then continue to work in different methods. Okay. And hopefully get some results one of those ways, or with all of them working together. But hopefully you're picking some natural ways. So add some massages and brain massages also.
One other thing, Linda, I mean, just riffing off your, one of the things Western medicine has recently discovered is that there are lymphatics in the brain, and they didn't believe there were, but they're called lymphatics. And because the brain really takes up all that space inside that hard skull, there isn't much room for the lymphatics to drain during the day. And when we sleep at night, and one of the reasons sleep is so important, is that the brain actually shrinks. And this is the time that the lymphatics can drain the toxins out of the brain. So one of the questions I was having is, why am I going into AFib in the middle of the night when I'm asleep? Usually right after midnight. I mean, this just seems bizarre to me. I'm not stressed at that point. I'm just sleeping. Well, this is when my lymphatics are draining. So if I wake up right after midnight, that's when I take some binders to bind whatever toxins my brain happens to be draining at that point. And it's also a reason why to drink a glass of really clean mineral water first thing in the morning to rehydrate your brain and keep it happy. This is why, that hydration, or the saying of drinking water when you first wake up, is so important.
That is really fascinating. I didn't know that about the brain. And like you said, Western medicine doesn't really know that as well. And actually we've got a commenter, Lynn Rose, who said the brain detoxes at night, so deep sleep is imperative. So yeah, and so maybe one great idea is to run some brain detoxes frequencies while you're sleeping. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
We do have a,
We Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
go ahead. No, you got it.
Uh, we have a question on someone has internal vibrations that are in her head. Any suggestions on that? Internal vibrations that are in her head.
Might need to clarify what those are to understand that one. We do have another question as well about, can you read that one, Mom?
Vision. I have visual
Yeah.
suppression in my right occipital lobe due to untreated amblyophobia. I can't even talk today. As a child, and I am blind down the middle. I need help with getting on my computer, as it makes my occipital lobe very weak. I even get dizzy. Any suggestions? That's a big one.
One of the things that I've studied, among other things, in the book Toxic, written by Neil Nathan, MD, who's one of my mentors on Lyme and mold, along with Joe Krista. And in the book Toxic, he has a page on Bartonella. And Bartonella is a co-infection to Lyme. And one of the weird symptoms of Bartonella is vibrations inside the body. Now, I just happened to be reviewing that this week. And so it's still fresh in my mind, because it is kind of what we call a strange symptom. And most people would send you to a good psychiatrist to put you on antipsychotic medication, which will shut down your energy field. In my experience, most people who are on antipsychotic medication are picking up too much stuff and energetic stuff. And so the antipsychotic drugs shut down your energy field so you can't pick up this stuff. So, but that doesn't really solve the underlying problem, but maybe makes life more comfortable for the moment. But feeling vibrations, you feel that, you know, nobody can say, oh, it's your imagination, oh, you're hallucinating, oh, you know, no, it's something you feel. And if it's not Bartonella, then it's something else that's causing a frequency. Then whether it's you're picking up a frequency from the EMFs, or, you know, here in Lawrence last fall, they installed smart meters on everybody's water line. And because water is a good conductor, looking at your computer and looking at how many different Wi-Fi's your computer can pick up, although most of them are locked, suddenly it was multiplied because these smart meters were multiplying how many of the Wi-Fi's could come through to my computer. If that makes any sense, what I'm saying, it's just, they're bombarding us with this, and it's, oh, it's, you know, in the 50s, it was better living through chemistry, and now it's better living through Wi-Fi. We'll get you connected here. And yet we have no idea what we're doing to the cellular integrity of our physical bodies, much less all the other organisms that live on this planet.
And, you know, so some things really quickly. I see right behind Dr. Laue is her magnificent crystal, her stones, and all of these rocks. You could do a study on different stones that have frequencies that balance out EMFs. Diamonds are a really good one. It's really nice to, you know, wear your diamonds. Don't put them in your drawer, but wear them because they do block EMFs. Another one is tourmaline. There are, you know, so many things that you could do, but you can put those different blockers on your phone and around your computer. There are just a plethora of things that we do need to be doing. And most of you know to, you know, shut off your Wi-Fi at night. Don't have your cell phone by your bed. The list goes on and on, you know. Make sure that you're very careful with your wrist. If you're wearing anything on your wrist that is connected to the internet. Now I knock myself out to make sure that the WAVwatch isn't, you know, but anything else, you know, don't be wearing that to bed at night. And I do have a couple of slides I can just kind of show you but I can tell you right quick why I am always so worried about Wi-Fi with people is because in my office, I've had a lady come in that wore her cell phone in her bra, and she actually had 3 kinds of breast cancer under the outline of her cell phone. And it is doing things to us. So we do need to be protecting ourselves very, very much. So maybe I could show you something that was, would that be okay to do? I don't mean to jump in, but I do
That's
have
great.
this
We
here.
do have a lot of questions too, so.
Okay. So move this away. Just wanted to show you just an image right here. Can everybody see that? Well, where'd it go to? Jumped. All right. So this is an image of somebody who had a thermography session done. And this is the camera that I use in my office. And basically you can see that their face is cool and there isn't anything that we would be alarmed about on the image on the left side. And as soon as they used their cell phone for 15 minutes, this is what their face looks like. Now, this is putting it up to their brain. And there's another picture of that radiation being absorbed into the brain. So, people who are naysayers and saying nothing's going on with the radiation, um, I beg to differ. I think something is definitely going on. Now, another one I wanted to share with you was that I had a lady who started wearing her cell phone in her pocket for work. And within about 6 months, she had a large ovarian cyst that had to be, that I don't know exactly what the result was, but she thought it was because of wearing the cell phone, that there was definitely a connection. And then the worst one that I share a lot is that I had an older lady come in who was about 84. She's a little crippled, so she kind of leaned to the one side, and she had a life alert that was hanging right here. And within, again, 6 to 8 months, she had breast cancer under that life alert. So I don't know how many times I can say that to people that, just in my small office, we are seeing the results of people putting products that have EMFs on their body having trouble. So what does your Fitbit do? What does your Apple phone do? I don't know. But I just thought I would share those two pictures with you to show you that there is definitely a connection. So don't want to get into that too much. I've got 20 more slides, but we don't have to see them at all. They are already available on the internet. You can see them in the previous program that I did on EMFs. And we have Dr. Shaffia Laue here today, who has so much information to share. So other questions, possibly, Joseph?
Yes, there are many, but
Yeah, so
and
I
the
thought you
answer.
were reading them, so I thought I'd let
Oh
you.
no, I was I'm just trying to find some that would be related to, yeah. So somebody said yesterday my wife started having headaches on the left side of her head, then her neck and her left arm. Could this be EMF or toxin related or something else? She is on a detox program. Any ideas on that one? Hard to know, right? But I think they're just wondering if you have any suggestions or thoughts. Where you have a headache on one side of her head, that's interesting to me, something I don't have any experience with.
All I know is to run the frequencies that are labeled headaches and migraines. I've had a couple of new migraine testimonies that have been very exciting. People have been suffering for 10 or 12 years, and the WAVwatch, just using the migraine frequency set was very, very helpful. So other ideas, Dr. Laue?
This is really hard to do streetcar diagnoses, but anytime somebody has left arm pain and it's not obvious what else is going on, you got to think of heart. You got to think of heart. And whether that is somehow connected with the left-sided headache or, which came first, the chicken or the egg? How is it integrated together? So look at the heart too.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
so
that's
glad you said that. Thank you. Yes.
yeah. Related to EMFs, two questions here. One says, I live in a ranch home and the circuit breaker box is in their bedroom. Their head is only 2 feet away from it with a smart meter just on the other side of the wall. Since moving here 2.5 years ago, my health issues have increased. I have EMF blockers on the circuit box. I'm guessing I should run EMF programs daily. Anything else? I mean, I'll give my personal thought is
Go for it.
move to a different bedroom, right? Your health is very important, but if you all have any other thoughts, because you can't turn your whole home off at night. Now, I do know some people that have had an electrician install a breaker box to turn off the circuits in their bedrooms at night, right? So, but where the whole meter for your home is right by your bedroom, I would switch rooms. But if you, yeah. Another one on the Apple Watch. Is
Well,
the Apple Watch?
if
Oh
I
yeah,
could
go
say
ahead.
about the smart meter, you know, get one of the devices that Linda's talk about that you can measure what the EMFs are in your bedroom. Measure it. And I've been recently working with a family who had a teenage son who had severe OCD at bedtime. But great student, good athlete, but OCD at bedtime. And they did this, and the smart meter, like you're saying, is just outside the wall of his bedroom. And that had some of the highest readings of the house. They moved him to the basement to sleep, but at the same time, they spent the money to bury the cable and move the smart meter because it was that important to them that it
Mhm.
be neutralized. I don't know exactly how they moved it or to where they moved it. I mean, that's some expense, but I know that they took a great deal of effort to do that because turns out that room also had a bunch of mold in it. So,
Two
um,
things.
these things multiply each other. So you have to keep saying, what else? What else? What else?
Yes, absolutely. Um,
I wanted to put something in there. I was able to help a friend who had her electric box above her bed, and we did some muscle testing, just like Dr. Lau showed us, one different way to muscle test. I did the stand and sway muscle testing, and we had different rocks. We were very interested to see, and we were able to pick out the rock that actually changed the frequencies from the bed, from the box, and we put the rock right inside the electric box, and her symptoms went away. Now you might muscle test to see if whatever product that you put on that electric box, you might muscle test to see if it's working. Get a meter like has been mentioned and measure that. But maybe try a couple more things. Seriously, put some rocks under your bed and muscle test to see, but use the WAVwatch too and move rooms. So some
um,
different ideas.
there are lots of questions on here. Some stuff we've kind of covered, but I do want to be mindful of time. Um, One thing, somebody had asked about your practice, Dr. Lau, and about a few of the people that you mentioned, Dr. Bredesen, Parmuter, and Tennant. Would it be possible, could you clarify how to spell their names or their websites or anything, just so that I can give some resources out, and also your own, if you have a website or...
My website is shaffialaumd.com. So you
Mm-hmm.
can see on the screen, that's how you spell my name.
Mm-hmm. All
Put
right.
that in .com or New Leaf Integrative Psychiatry, which is a lot more letters. So shaffialaumd.com is easier.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of
And
information there.
okay.
Jerry Tennant, Tennant,
Okay.
MD,
Is that G or J
J
for his first name?
Jerry.
Jerry Tennant,
Yeah,
MD.com.
he's in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. And Parmuter or Bredesen?
Perlmutter is in Florida, and Perlmutter, MD. And he's a neurologist who's done a lot of work with integrative medicine because in neurology, they don't have any good solutions. So,
Mm-hmm.
and he watched his dad, a neurosurgeon, die with Alzheimer's. So he had an invested interest in
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what was going on.
Yeah.
And so he probably has some stuff on the web. He has some great lectures and he has several books. I think he's the one. Did Perlmutter write Grain Brain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brain. That's one of his good books, but there's several others that'll help you find the rest.
Okay.
Bredesen, Bredesen.
Okay.
And his website is Apollo Health. And he has a lot of information there for people with Alzheimer's. He wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's. And then with the first people, he wrote a second book, The First Survivors of Alzheimer's, people who were told, go home, put your affairs in order, you're going
Mhm.
downhill. And they said, I'm not going to take that as an answer. And they found him, and one guy who was told to close his practice, and I think he was an accountant, and he did the Bredesen protocol for a year and opened another office,
Mhm.
So Alzheimer's is not the dead end street that they would have you believe.
Mhm.
But it is a buildup of toxins in the brain. And the
Mhm.
people who have the APOE SNP that makes them more vulnerable actually is an advantage if you live in the jungle, because it makes your immune system work better. But when you have
Mhm.
toxins in your brain, your immune system says, oh, I need a scab here. This doesn't belong here. So you make these plaques, and so they try to give you a drug to remove the plaques. Well, that's like ripping the scab off, and your body goes, no, 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 I need that scab. And it
Makes
redoubles
more.
efforts to build the plaques.
Wow. Linda, if you could make me the host, I can send out a chat to everybody. I've just compiled all the links you just mentioned. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I will put that in the chat. Just make me the host so I can
Okay, I
send
guess
that
I
out.
thought you were the host.
No, that's fine.
There you
Um,
go.
And just for everybody watching, there are several people commenting here with helpful ideas about EMS. There's a smart meter guard. So there's a website about that. You can have your power company replace it with an old analog meter. So those of you that feel like that was forced, you can call and request them. So somebody said they pay $19 monthly for the privilege of not having a smart meter. So there are always options. We feel like things get forced on us, but definitely it's worth fighting and asking. So I will drop all those links that I've just compiled of the resources, including Dr. Laue's website, Jerry Tennant, Pearl Meter, and Bredesen. So everybody, you can check out that chat. And yeah, it's been a really great conversation. So any other closing thoughts or questions, Linda or Dr. Lau?
I am just so thankful that you had the time to come on today and share your information with us. You were so educated about EMFs, and I just really appreciate that. Plus, so many other things. And people are getting educated about EMFs, but we need to be sharing it, because there are still people who are so unconcerned about the tools that they are wearing all the time. They may make little comments about they don't want to be tracked, or they know our society could be tracking them, or it's irritating to be XYZ, but that doesn't mean that they're taking their watches off that are doing the tracking and possibly causing some health problems. So be very careful with what you do and what you choose. Your health is the most important thing. That's all we can say. Any other ideas? I'm Dr. Lau.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. I was going to throw something and let Dr. Law close. My brother, who's not on, he just suggested Faraday cages, or I guess they're cloth bags that you can have your phones in. So that's another interesting idea, maybe at night or yeah.
Well, not just for your phone. You can buy cloth bags to sleep in that is
Yeah.
like a Faraday cage to protect your body at night. It's have to pull it up over your head. Well, space for you to breathe through. But they do make these things, and there are kids who are called neurodivergent or autistic. And if they have clothes that have the silver threads in them that makes their clothes like a Faraday cage, they're closer to normal and can function. These are the canaries in the coal mine. And autism isn't one thing. And so they say, oh, it's not this, it's not that. No, that is one of the things. But just like I said, autism to Alzheimer's, it's all brain toxins. And everybody's different.
So that's another idea. Keep in mind, clean out our brain. Look for different ways to keep your brain as detoxified as possible. So we may have stirred up as many questions, and maybe people will have some more input on ways to detoxify your brain. You know, we've got a lot on the WAVwatch. It's very specific, and people say, oh, well, which detox one do I use? And it's like, use all of them. Let it go through from one to the other, because you do not know what you have been exposed to, you know, and you may think you get something cleared out and then you're re-exposed to it, you know, and then run the EMF detox and run the molds and the Lyme disease. Everything is so connected with those two problems. Yes.
If I could say one other thing, you know, back in the 50s, deodorants had aluminum chlorhydrate that was supposed to keep you odor free. And then we decided that wasn't a good idea. But I can't remember, who is the author of the book Crooked? He's thinking. Variety. Anyway, there's a book Crooked. And it has a little kid on the front with a crooked smile. And he goes into great detail explaining what is now known, how the aluminum adjuvant, which is the additive in the vaccines to cause an inflammation in the vaccine site to, quote, make the vaccine work better, actually gets picked up by the autoimmune cells in your blood and immediately carries all of the aluminum to the brain. And the researchers have done this with monkeys that were sacrificed, because previous to this, they said, oh, the aluminum just disappears. We don't know where it went, but it's not in the body. It's not in the blood. No, they sacrificed the monkeys and it was in the brain. All of the aluminum immediately went to the brain. So please be careful. Oh, you got the right author. Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, I found it and dropped it in the chat for everybody. Dr. Moretti, but that's, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Something.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, I had a lot of fun today. I learned a lot of stuff. So I
Me
hope you're
too.
all in
That was
that
wonderful.
same. Yes. Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next week. Thank you, Dr. Laue, for coming on.
Thanks again for joining. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.